Hey everyone, it's Ian, and we are on our last Batman Inktober video. I'm starting off with the Mad Hatter here, and he's usually depicted as a smaller stature character, but I remember him more from the animated series where he's a little bit taller. I also, for some reason, recall him in other media, not so much a Tim Burton, but the Tom Petty music video actually, where he's dressed as the Mad Hatter. So because there are so many different versions of this character from the original Lewis Carroll story, it's kind of fun to incorporate that into this kind of amalgamation of characters in the Batman series. I really wanted to throw a bunny over his shoulder, so I did. It's just a cute little bunny. I was thinking about having henchmen in the background with like bunny masks, but eventually I thought it would be better just have an actual bunny. And I wanted to make the tea that he's offering or kind of forcing upon the viewer to be a little bit more viscous, to have this really thick quality where you know something's up with the tea. It's not something you should drink. Something else that I wanted to incorporate here was all these different patterns in his suit as well. So I have that line pattern in his suit, I have the polka dots in his bow tie, and then he has this checker pattern on this kind of vest that he's wearing as well. I'm fairly happy with how this one came out. I'm not super thrilled with some of the lines that I have in his face, but otherwise I think he came out okay. But the little bunny is definitely my favorite part. Next up, we have the Great White Shark, and I start off with this kind of angle, and I just really wasn't happy with it. I didn't think it was dramatic enough, and it really didn't show off all those creepy facial features that he has. So I ended up scrapping this, you'll see in just a second here, and I start new with a slightly more confrontational look where he's kind of looking down on the viewer, and you do get a glimpse at more of the body horror that he has going on with his face there. His backstory, like a lot of these characters, is horrific and kind of pushes the envelope of some of those kind of edgelordy characters sometimes that you get in Batman. But he is a really cool kind of character and a really tragic character. And I had somebody comment that some of the line work looked a little Junji Ito in this one. And while I am nowhere near that caliber, I can see where they're coming from. And that's kind of what I was going for, something that at least looked a little bit rougher, maybe a little bit more horror-esque. Yeah, just something that did look more confronting and something that looks like it's invading your space a little bit more. I also added this kind of glassy quality to his eyes. There's no precedent for that in any of the comics, and I have seen his eyes depicted sometimes as black, sometimes just as normal eyes. It's all just kind of a stylistic choice. There's no reason for that, but I thought it made him look even creepier, and even though it's fairly simplistic, I'm pretty happy with how this one came out. And while we're on the body horror train, let's move on to Clayface. Now, Clayface was another one of the episodes in the original Batman the Animated Series that freaked me out. Again, kind of like Great White Shark, he just is really tragic, and he has this addictive kind of personality, and it was just a horrible episode. It really affected me, but I, at the same time, really love his design. And you can see, if you're familiar with that series, that his design is mostly taken from the series, but I did add in some things that he's known for a little bit more now, especially in the new 52, I believe they started doing this, where he has kind of like an inner mouth inside of his mouth, kind of like a shark, how they have multiple layers of teeth. I had something a little bit more like that. I wanted to have his arm coming across and making this big splash, making him look really muddy, and I just wanted to make him look pretty simple with the shadows. I didn't want to do too much cross-hatching or anything like that. I don't believe I did any in this. I think it's mostly just black and white, and that's it. I tried to keep the values really simple, and for this character in particular, I think it works pretty well. I think he does look a little cartoony, but for this character more than any other, I think it works because when you do have a character that can make any kind of formation because he's made out of clay, I think it kind of makes sense. So I'm really actually happy with this one. It's my favorite one that I have in this series. And with that, we make a big transition to a very grounded character, which is Commissioner James Gordon. And I wanted to do a very classic looking piece. This is one of my favorite Batman characters, maybe comic characters ever. He's just a good guy, but he's not like Boy Scouty really. He's just trying to do the right thing, and he's a cool character. And I think it turned out okay. I'm not super happy with the city in the background. This one went super fast, as you can tell with the recording here for me. It went really quick, but I don't think I nailed that city stylistically like I hoped. But I think it turned out okay. Next we have probably the newest character out of all the Batman Inktobers I've done so far. This is Bloom. I really like his design. You can tell it's really inspired by like Slender Man, especially with like the viney kind of things he has coming off of his back there. But I do think it's a cool design, and I like that I was able to play with proportions more than probably any of the other characters, maybe besides like Clayface, but he's really long, and I can push all those long nails that he has and those tendrils he has in his back there. The most challenging thing I did find with this character, besides having a kind of menacing pose, was the shadows. Because his body kind of weaves in and out, it was a little bit harder to figure out, okay, where do shadows actually fall on his body and makes something that looks this crazy look somewhat realistic, or kind of like it has some sort of substance in it in the real world, and trying to get those shadows right was kind of a challenge, but it was really fun to do, especially after some of the other characters that seemed a little bit more grounded. He's maybe not a top tier villain like some of the others we have in here, but it's something different. And sticking with the New 52, we're moving on to Joker in the New 52. This version is known for his kind of Leatherface appearance, and kind of a mistake I made was looking up a reference for medical photos of people what they would look like basically if they had some of the skin removed on their face. That was a mistake as far as just that staying in my head. I'll always have that, but it did kind of help me figure out how that mask would lie on top of his face without that skin, and kind of the areas underneath where you can see the teeth or the eyes poking through, and I actually do think stuff like that helps me anyways, even if it kind of sticks with me. But originally you could probably see he did have a weapon in his hand, but I thought it looked a little too claustrophobic adding that in there, and maybe that would work, especially with this character, to kind of put you off ease. But I just wanted something maybe a little bit more simplistic and not directed as much at the weapon. I wanted it to be mostly focused on his face. I like how his hair came out in this, and I do like how the wrinkles on his skin mask there turned out as well. I'm fairly happy with this piece. To be honest, my main goal with this was to make him look scary. A lot of artists have made this version of Joker look terrifying, so I wanted to at least hopefully accomplish that, and I think I did. I think he looks kind of creepy in this. And I think he looks better than the Joker I did previously, which is better this way than vice versa. Next up, we have Professor Pig, and this is probably a runner-up for the most messed up Batman character, and again, looks very horror movie-esque. So I wanted to give him kind of that look, like we're looking up at him. He's about to perform one of his surgeries, and we are, of course, the patient. So he has his hand in the foreground here, his face and his scalpel are more in the background, and we're looking up at him, of course, with that creepy underlighting there too. So we get a very horror movie looking kind of pose and lighting there. I did see some references where sometimes it was just like a literal pig that had been cut out and was put over his face. I don't think that actually looked as creepy as just this kind of like Halloween store pig mask that he has. He's not always depicted this gross looking, but I think he's a gross character, and it really made sense for me to put some, like, I don't know, gross kind of drool coming out of his mouth there. And with that, I'm kind of happy to be over Professor Pig, but I think he came out kind of looking creepy, and that's ultimately what I wanted. And last up for this video and for the entire 2019 Inktober series that I've done is Solomon Grundy. Now, Solomon Grundy was a character that I knew about for a long time, but I didn't know the history, and that Marvel and DC kind of played off each other with Hulk, and they kind of took inspiration off each other, and they would kind of volley back and forth. So it was this very Frankenstein looking character, and then he gets bigger once Marvel made Hulk, and he started getting bigger, and it's just kind of fun history like that. I like stuff like that in comics and how they can influence each other and each other's characters. But I have seen a lot of Solomon Grundy, especially in Arkham games, and he has a lot of things going on with like stitching, like he's been through an autopsy and things like that. But for me, I kind of wanted to keep him simple. I wanted to have this character that looked almost, again, kind of in the theme of Batman, kind of tragic, and essentially just like a basic zombie, but I wanted to make him kind of bulky, very Frankenstein-esque, and something that would look very classic, that could really be in any era of the Batman series. And with that, I'm fairly happy with how he came out. I kind of like the grungy nature of his clothing, and I like the veins that kind of pop out, kind of similar to how I had Bane in the last video as well. And with that, we are done with another Inktober. Even though it is November, hey, I finished it, it's done, so there's that. But thank you so much for watching this video in its entirety. I have all my other Batman Inktobers in my channel you can check out, and if you did like this video, I would really really appreciate it if you give it a like. And if you're not subscribed yet, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe. And you can follow me on social media, most active on Instagram. You can follow me there at iangoudelock. Thank you guys again so much for watching. You have a good one, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.